All right, mic check. We're going. This is Hard Parking, brought to you by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Back. This is the first episode here in 2026. Back like I never left, y'all. So the last time you heard me, I was talking about some changes that I was making here in the studio. So if you're watching this, you can definitely see a different background. You'll also see a different background opposite of me here in the studio. Coming up on today's show, Jay Michael Lopez returns. If that name sounds familiar to you, he is the guy who loves kit cars. He's building himself a kit car one day. He also has cancer, and he was last on here in December of 2024. So we're checking up with him before he moves to Florida. What do we talk about besides his cancer? Well, of course, we talk about cars. And Jay has an opinion. And I like guests that are willing to talk about certain things because that allows me to talk about certain things I normally wouldn't talk about on the show. We do touch the Renee Good ICE situation in Minneapolis. I think it's important. One of the things that made this show, I think, great early on is that I wasn't afraid to talk about, I wouldn't say politics, I would say more things that are stirring up society, stirring up the country we live in, stirring up the world. And this is a classic example. I think the last time, obviously George Floyd, but, you know, there was that big shooting in Houston. God, it feels like a couple of years now. And Brian Sales is the one I would usually have come on the podcast. He's doing some different things in his life these days. And this just happened to be an opportunity for us to talk about it. So you're going to want to stick around because I know some of you value those conversations more than others. And some of you do want to know what my thoughts are when it comes to those things. Also, this past weekend, Italdesign has released a tribute, an NSX Tribute, second gen NSX Tribute. And they are partnering with Honda on this thing. And I don't know if this was technically revealed at the Tokyo Auto Salon, which just took place, or it just happened to be another probably huge event out there in Japan that may have happened at the same time. But a lot of people have sent that to me on social media. I'm not a big fan of it. It looks like, I don't know what it looks like, but a lot of people are going crazy about it. It's going to be limited, of course, in the amount that they make, and right-hand drive only, which is the Japanese market. I don't like the taillights. I think the NC1, which is the kind of car I have right now, the NC1 platform, I don't think you can make it any nicer than they did the Type S that I drive. The regular NC1, 2017 to 2021, great looking car, but I think the Type S that I have is as good as it's going to get. These renderings and this AI video that they did of the Italdesign NSX, it just is not working for me. When the lights, at first I thought it had those sliver lights on the front, kind of like the Prelude does or some of the new Ferraris, but the lights actually retract up in one of the AI videos. And so it actually looked a little better, looked more like my car. But I'm not a huge fan of that. So if you guys have seen it, let me know what your thoughts on it. So I talked about some changes here in the studio, and I also made changes to just some overall branding. So you may have noticed a new opening as well. So hopefully, again, you're watching that. I really want to push more of you that are used to listening to this. And I know that a lot of people listen to this on their way to work or while they're at work, times where you can't really watch it. I understand you can't really watch it on YouTube, but YouTube is where it's at. YouTube is where I would prefer people watch the podcast because of some of the visuals and because YouTube is monetized, and I'm still waiting for my first YouTube check. That means no one's watching it, but that's okay. I love all of you all the same, but that's just my preference. So before the end of the year, I decide, I go to a car show, and I'm looking around, and I have an old Honda Z, as you know, 1998, and I'm looking around at other people that have these old Hondas and Civics and just old cars, and some of them are imported from other countries, K cars like mine, and I see they have the classic plate on them. I go, I should get a classic plate for my car. So I get online and I register for a classic plate. For some reason, I can't pick it. You're supposed to be able to pick your classic vanity plate. I can't. So I get the plate. I wait a couple of weeks. I get the plate in the mail. And at this point, I want to transfer my old plate from the Honda Z over to the NSX and retire the VF1S NSX plate and replace it with Hard Parking. That's the plate that I recently had for the Honda Z. So I get online. I'm looking I go, well, I already own the plate. So you have to pay for, you pay for customization. You pay for the special plate itself. And I asked AI, I said, hey, I live in Arizona. Should I just register the plate online since I already own the plate? Because you can't transfer the plate. And the state says, well, you're going to save yourself money if you go into the office. So I make an appointment. I go into the office. And thank God, I think I've said this before, make an appointment. If your local Department of Motor Vehicles has an appointment option, always make an appointment. I get in line, and I'm number 4 in line. There's at least 250 people in the no appointment line. So I'm going to be in and out really quick. Smart on my part. So I'm next in line. They go, hey. So I walk over there. I sit down, tell them what I want to do. And this poor lady that's sitting in front of me, she doesn't really talk good English. I don't know what nationality she was. I could just tell by her attempts to talk English to me, it wasn't her first, second, maybe even third language. But it's good enough to work for the state. So I was trying to tell her, hey, I own this plate. I just took this plate off of my little car, and I brought everything I could think of. Now I'm no longer using this plate. I want to transfer this plate to myself to this other vehicle that I already have. So she was able to look at my policy and say, okay, well, I got the NSX. I got the Honda Z, we got the MDX, those are the 3 vehicles that we have. And it should be just cut and dry, right? So I'm at the DMV for like an hour, and she has to talk to her manager. And according to the rules, unless she just wasn't 100% sure of what I wanted to do, you can't transfer your plate to another one of your vehicles. You can transfer a plate if you sold your vehicle. Now, I don't know how much of this was lost in translation, to be fair, but based on what I was able to communicate, I couldn't just transfer hard parking from the Honda Z. First off, they couldn't even find any record that the hard parking was associated with the Honda Z. I've had Jay-Z on there, I've had hard parking, and now I have a historic plate. As soon as I got the classic plate, sat down, tried to look it up online, and the Arizona Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, there is no record. No matter how many times you've registered your vehicles, there's no record of whatever your previous license plate was, which is crazy to me. I still have NA2 NSX all ran together. I had a friend reach out years ago and say, hey, I want NA2 NSX, and I couldn't get it because you still have it. And this was after I've already transitioned on to VF1S NSX. Usually the rule is in order for someone else to use that vanity plate, you have to turn that plate in. Therefore, it's available, so you're not driving around with somebody else's plate in your car. Obvious reasons it makes sense. But for whatever reason, when I upgraded or I changed from hard parking to the classic plate, any proof that I ever had that I actually owned hard parking, the license plate, was just gone. And so I go, look, I got pictures. And the woman's like, no, you're fine. So an hour later, she comes back. She goes, okay, we got it fixed. We got it all taken care of for you. You're good to go. Get out here. This is how much it's going to be. And she's like, well, it's $53 to do everything today. I'm like, oh, okay, 53. All right, cool. And I start reading it. And she goes, well, this is your plate. This is how little she understands. She goes, okay, well, this is your new registration. This is your temporary plate. Exactly like the plate I already have. I literally had the plate in my hand. I brought it in with me. The actual plate. I said, hey, this is what I want to transfer over to the remaining 6 months before I have to register the car again. My NSX expires every June because I picked up the car in June of 22. She goes, okay, you'll transfer it over. I said, yeah. So then she gives me the temporary plate. She goes, this is your temporary plate, hard parking, just like the literal physical plate I had in front of me. And at 2 or 3 weeks, this will come in the mail. Would you like me to take that plate you have with you and destroy it? No, it's the same fucking plate I brought in. I was there for an hour and a half, and I paid exactly the same amount had I just bought it online the night before. I paid for the vanity plate, which I literally already had, and I paid for vanity customization, which I already had. Complete waste of time. Before we get to this interview with Jay Lopez, this conversation with Jay Lopez, a little note from SparkForge, new read for this year, eventually when I have time, because Nathan gave this to me at the last minute. And I said, hey, nothing like giving me the sponsor read at the last minute. So this one's going to be verbal before I go and find some music. Maybe I should use the same music that I used last year. I do that, I go and find that music and I decide to read it with the script. Now, what do they have it on MTV Unplugged when it was just the acoustic? You were just playing and it's like, yeah, Unplugged. Was it Unplugged or anyway, this is my MTV, rest in peace MTV. I think MTV's done. I think MTV ended at the end of 2025 actually, but rest in peace MTV, and this is my sponsor read Unplugged. If you run a business and you're tired of juggling tools, chasing logins, and constantly feeling like tech side of things is heavier than it should be, this might hit close to home. That tech fatigue usually shows up as an outdated website, reviews slipping through the cracks, missed calls when you're busy, or social media that's always on the back burner. Most business owners know something's off, but fixing it feels like a bigger project than they have time for. SparkForge exists to take that weight off. It handles the tech behind the scenes, helps clean up your business, shows up online, makes sure calls and messages don't get missed, keeps reviews from slipping through the cracks, and wrangles social media marketing so you don't disappear for weeks. If you're curious, there's a short discovery session and it comes with 90 days free to actually see if it makes things easier. No pitch, no pressure. Just a real conversation about what's working, what's broken, and what you can simplify. SparkForge brings everything together, one login, one platform, so you're not fighting your tech just to run your business. Head over to sparkforge.ai/hardparking to get started. Jay Lopez, welcome back on the podcast. Welcome officially into Hard Parking Studios, man.
Thank you for having me back here at the studio. I feel very privileged and honored to be here. This is a beautiful studio you have.
I appreciate it. The privilege and honor is on me, of course, with having you in front of me. So this is your second time officially on the show.
Correct.
December of 2024, you were on the last time.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about some of your passions. I always refer to you as the kit car guy.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people, and I think we talked about it last time, right? It's just like kit cars are such a big thing in the 80s and 90s. And now I think most people have no idea they even exist. With the exception of that, is it like a GTM?
GTM. There's also the Cobras out there that are very popular. That's been popular
like the
since
Factory
the beginning.
5 stuff. But I don't think people ever think about those as kit cars, even though that's what they are.
Yeah. They see a Cobra and they kind of classify it as something else, a component car. That's just a fancy word for a kit car. GT40s are another one, which
most of them are that you see out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Superformance has done an incredible job. And then you've got Ultima Performance, which that one is often slept on because most people look at it. It's like, oh, it's just a McLaren F1 wannabe. But what most people don't understand is they bought two Ultima GTRs to help develop the McLaren F1. So that's how I discovered that car and how great it is, its potential, and even the value of it, what it brings.
So last time you were on, we talked about your cancer, and you were just getting started on treatments. I think you were maybe a couple months into it.
Yeah, I had started in May of 2024 with chemotherapy, and it progressed for the better throughout 2024 into much 2025.
25 was a big year for you, tough year for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are you like now? Tell us where you're at with your cancer now.
So with my cancer, I'm what's called a maintenance plan. So we have this thing to where it's small enough to where they really can't take a biopsy of it. So they've taken me off chemotherapy and they've replaced that with immunotherapy, a medicine called Avastin. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And ever since they put me on that, it has done a lot of wonders. Unfortunately, the cancer has not shrunk any further. It's just there with activity, but there's no cancer signatures in the lymph node like there was the last time I talked to you, which to me, that was probably the scariest part of my treatment because the lymph node, it runs right next to your male parts. It was within inches of that, and I had so many nightmares. What if this thing actually got to it?
Yeah.
So that's just a thing of the past. It went down to a stack of dimes. Now it's non-existent. And immunotherapy, it allows me to almost live a normal life. Yes, I do get fatigued, but not as often. I don't really get sick. So I have that boost of, hey, I can go out, go for a walk, go for a run. And the best part of all is the treatment is only 30 minutes when I go to Ironwood. It's not 2 hours plus I have to have a designated driver. No, I go up there, handle my business. I'm back home in about an hour every time.
So as of right now, you've kind of gotten through the worst of the worst in the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the opportunities that they've told you that it's just pure monitoring at this point? It hasn't gone anywhere. Like realistically, what do they say? We just continue monitoring for the rest of your life, or you know, what have we seen in other people with similar?
So with my metastatic rectal cancer, typically most patients, that's only 21% actually live. You know, they beat this thing. And in my case, it's probably going to be a lifetime membership with maintenance. My colorectal surgeon, she's amazing. She hates cancer probably more than anybody else. She wants to perform surgery. And that's a pretty scary, daunting task, because if I was to go and do this as she explained it to me, I'm going to get what's called a stoma or a colostomy bag. So the days of me going number 2 in the bathroom, they're done.
Sure.
So now I'm going to have this thing on my stomach. And at first when I heard about this, I was terrified. I was thinking, oh man, this is going to ruin my life. But rather than assuming things, I talked to some people who've actually crossed that bridge already. And a lot of them are very encouraging, and they're just saying, you know what, you can do this. It's not so bad. And a lot of them have told me the same thing, where the worst thing that's ever come out of that is, hey, you don't have an excuse to go spend 5 minutes in the bathroom anymore. You're in and out.
Yeah.
So if it comes down to it, I'm prepared to pull the trigger and get it done, despite how scary it is. And my oncologist, she even tells me, hey, you've got nothing to worry about. You can do this too. So I'm prepared to do it if that's what it comes to.
So it sounds common for that condition.
Yeah, in some cases, if you are somebody who's struggling with like blockages, it starts affecting your quality of life, that's going to be most likely the route that they're going to take, is surgery. And in my case, they pretty much gave me 2 possibilities, where if you have enough margin, it's reversible, where your colostomy bag would be temporary. In my case, it's probably going to be permanent, because the cancer is in the controlled muscles. So if we have to delete that, it's going to be like deleting the cat back exhaust on a car completely. You know, so just imagine you're cutting the exhaust off. There goes your exhaust.
It's a loud car.
Yeah, it's a lot of exhaust going to be deleted.
Yeah, that's a loud car.
Yeah.
What can you do to, if anything, to prevent yourself from having to go that route, or to slow down the likelihood? I would imagine stuff you eat downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
We both have waters, no sugars. What else have you had to change, if anything?
Well, I would say one of the first things I've had to change, when I had this conversation with the doctors, I was 30 pounds overweight more. So I was about 360 pounds. I got there because they put me on steroids.
Yep.
So when you're on steroids, you gain weight like no tomorrow. I've had weight problems my entire life, and this just amplifies it by like 100. So for me, I'm going to start out with probably losing more weight. There's no excuse for me to be 300 pounds right now, even though that's where I'm at. I'm over 300 pounds. There's no excuse for me to be there now. I'm off of the steroids. So I think that's going to be the starting point, is losing weight.
How?
I have to focus on proteins. I have to focus on staying away from carbs, things that are going to put weight, keep weight on me. I need to up my fluid level, like just drink water, stay away from sugary drinks, because sugary drinks, that just amplifies whatever symptoms you're going to have. You know, it's bad enough, TMI, I'm in the restroom quite a bit. If I drink a sugary soda or energy drink, it's going to be like times 10. So.
Did you have issues with energy drinks before?
No, not at all.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, what have you had to change yourself? Because you know what you have to stay away from. But like, I'll be honest with you, it would be hard for me. And this is the thing we always talk about, like our elders, you know, like my, mother-in-law, diabetes, and she used to have to wear this little beep thing on her, and she got tired of it, take it off. But it's like, well, you're not supposed to eat this, but you do it anyway. You know, a lot of people just say, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want to do. But you have to tell yourself, right, to not do those things. And I think I even myself would struggle with certain things that if I just had to stop doing it. then at some point I might just say, fuck it, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Right.
Is that a challenge that you have to face now, or have you always been pretty strict on what you like and you don't like, even though you've always struggled with weight?
Yeah, I've always struggled with consistency in that aspect, especially if I want to lose weight. It's always been, for an example, we're starting out the new year. What's the number one goal in the new year that most people have?
Mm-hmm.
It's to lose weight.
Lose weight, yeah.
But if they don't work on their thinking, by the time Valentine's Day rolls around, they're not even going to be able to find the gym. So I think the most important aspect, the most difficult part is that psychological thinking, that you have to break that pattern that, hey, am I going to slam this energy drink or am I going to just drink a glass of water? It's going to always be that tug of war of making the right decision and finding yourself going back to your old habit and then trying to implement this new thought process and, introduce this into your life. And it takes a long time to really build good habits, It's just how we are.
You hit the nail on the head, I think, because my wife the other day, she goes, hey, why don't you do a dry January?
Mm-hmm.
I go, a dry January? I said, how about I just focus on a dry Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened to be Thursday, right?
Wow.
You have to take the steps to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you go to the gym. Nobody likes going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've gone to the gym on a consistent basis, when you miss a day,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, shit, I missed a day. But if you miss too many days, then you're not going to go back to the gym, right? So I think it's kind of that step program over time is what's
Mm-hmm.
really going to make the change. And it's harder to do than most people think it is.
Yeah, they think that they can do it in a couple days. Unfortunately, social media, some of these influencers make it out, oh, why aren't you doing this?
Well, you had a rant about that the other day.
I sure did.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going into that because they make it sound so easy, but they never talk about the work that actually has to get done to get these results. If you want to implement something new to your life, you got to plan at least a month and a half at minimum to develop this new habit before it becomes just habit. And then trying to kick your old habit to the curb is even more difficult because it's always going to try to find a way to just snake back in. You have a bad day. It starts raining. Just anything, any excuse. Your body just, your brain just automatically thinks, I can afford to skip today. And then before you know it, it's a week later and you're thinking to yourself, I can afford to skip this week. I'll make it up next week. Never works that way,
Let's pivot a little bit because you're getting ready to leave us and move out of the state. Let's talk about that before. Okay. I was getting ready to jump to some recent events with cars, but why are you leaving Arizona?
Well, I will have to dive even deeper back to an event, which I posted on my Instagram, my Facebook. I hit rock bottom completely. And how did I hit rock bottom? I lost somebody very important to me, my fiancée of 10 years.
September 10th?
Yeah, September 10th. She had been battling all kinds of little issues since we've been together. Since the time we've been together, she's had back issues. She had I don't know what that surgery is, gastric bypass gone bad. So that led to a lot of other issues.
Does she have like an infection and shit like that?
Mm-hmm. So she had occasional ulcers, just things that didn't make any sense. It was a big old snowball effect to really put it into perspective. And just to kind of dive into that event that happened on, back in September, weeks leading up to that, I noticed that her legs would occasionally turn like a purple color. Mm-hmm. That's usually not a good sign. Something's not functioning right. So I did take her to the ER a couple times. There was nothing on their end that they saw that was alarming. So fast forward to September 9th, the night before. This is a normal day. Imagine just, you're with your spouse, you're worried about, bills, things coming up. You don't think of anything other than just your routine. But I will say this much, out of that time we've been together, it was very strangely very peaceful, like the night before. I'd taken her to an appointment, and for some reason I wasn't as stressed. I was like, this is kind of weird, just things were incredibly quiet for some reason and just peaceful. So I don't know what happened. the night of when we went to sleep and the night when we woke up, because, Katie would sometimes sleep in the living room because she had her own issues. She's like, I don't want to keep you awake. Why don't you go sleep in the bedroom? So basically, I started my morning the normal way. We had a doctor appointment. I get up. I do my morning cycle, as I call it, dealing with my symptoms. I get over that. I get out of the restroom. I walk down the hallway and, I'm getting ready to wake her up. Hey, we got to get this appointment going, and put things into a perspective. When I approached it, it just wasn't as routine. I immediately saw that there was that purple color on her legs all the way up around her face, and blood was coming out of her nose, and I immediately knew. So from that time, I just remember going into a panic, like a downward spiral. It felt like somebody threw me out of an airplane, but times 1,000.
Sure.
Your life slows down for a minute, and the next thing I know, I'm in the hands of a Mesa police officer. Like, literally, it happened within seconds. My neighbor's coming out there. And, from there on, it unfolded. To me, it was really difficult making that call to her 91-year-old father and letting her know what happened. And then her brother, who lived nearby, the one that I worked for. And, his wife had to come out. So it was pretty tough. Pretty tough is the understatement. I would say it's the most painful thing I had ever experienced while being alive. And if I could say anything to anybody that's in a long-term relationship or a marriage right now, and that is that pain one of you is going to feel one day. I'm not trying to scare you or your listeners or viewers, but unfortunately, that's just the way life is going to be when you lose your spouse.
Dude, that was months ago. We're not even 6. Dude, we're 3.5, almost 4 months from that. Like, we're not even there yet.
Right.
That's, I saw the post, like most people, bro, I'm really sorry because I know she's your ride or die in like every post. But this is my first time knowing exactly what happened and what went down, and to know that the night before was just, it was peaceful, but it didn't seem like it was irregular from any other normal night. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So from that point, when you find her, it sounds like everything else was just kind of a blur.
Right. Like, I went into a tunnel vision, and it felt like at one point in time, like I was going to die.
Yeah.
Like I was losing control of myself. It felt like I was running down a hallway, but instead of running down a hallway, it feels like you're running backwards. It's the weirdest feeling in the world.
I can imagine it in my head because they do this thing on TV shows where they do the camera zoom and everything kind of like, it's like you're not moving, but everything else around you is kind of like a reverse warp.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's what it would have felt like. And or I won't even say felt like. I can't even imagine what it felt like, but
that's
know what
okay.
I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So what do? You call, you just get on the phone, obviously, and geez.
Yeah. So one of those calls was to my mother, back in Florida, and my grandfather, and I had to let them know, and that was very tough to hear, their voice crackle and become emotional. That to me was, aside from discovering her, that was the second part, was telling family and just hearing and feeling their reaction. I know that's a very weird way to put it.
It isn't.
But, to me, it was very hard to make those calls and be like, hey, she's not here with us anymore.
Have you been able to talk to anyone? Any sort of counseling, or do you use your friend groups, family? You've allowed yourself, because it sounds like you immediately jumped into a reaction mode. Like, okay, this is a situation. Let's deal with the situation. And once things calm down, now it's just me, and now it's all coming in. Is that kind of how it went down, or you may not even remember?
It's really hard for me to remember, but, I do remember a lot of her family reaching out to me because I'm the only one out here from my family.
Right.
So her family to me is my family.
Yep.
And the first one I remember reaching out was her niece, who, by the way, is battling brain cancer. You know, she had surgery, so her motor skills, she's in recovery mode. She immediately was one of the first ones to reach out, you know, and ever since that time, you know, her family does reach out to me every now and then to check out, hey, how you doing? And it really goes back to when I was first diagnosed. You got to build this network of people that are they're gonna walk with you through the valley of hell, as essentially as I would call it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are situations like this that happen while you're going through treatment. You know, I looked it up to see if there was anybody else who had gone through anything similar. I'm pretty sure there is, you know, but hardly anybody has shared that story, you know, their story, their situation. So I guess my goal with this would be hopefully, you know, if there's another cancer patient survivor that they could learn from this situation, you know, and it would better help them.
Was there any survivors' guilt? Does that ever kick in, or just like the two of you've known that you've been on this journey together for a while?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine may have been some sort of conversations at some point in the past. Hey, you know, if anything happens to me, anything happens to you.
Mm-hmm. For me, there's not a moment that goes by where I don't feel, I feel responsible to some extent. You're going to feel that lifetime guilt. And I'm not going to lie, and I've said this to very few, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm not I'm not proud of the final moments I had with her because I was too busy. I want to go to sleep, you know. And looking back on that, that's probably that sentenced me to a lifetime of guilt. So when I look in the mirror every day, I feel guilty. Like, you should have had the best foot forward no matter what. And in that moment, you were just being grouchy. Now you have yourself a lifetime of guilt that you're going to reflect back on. That's what goes through my head quite a bit.
I hope through time you don't let that continue to grind at you, you know, because life happens. And, you know, we never know when it's going to be our last. We never know when it's going to be our last time to see somebody, you know. We don't get the chance to always say goodbye. Right. Unless someone's bedridden and you know, right? And you just, it sounds like it was just a normal night and not a normal morning. Right. And so I think that's the reality at the end of the day of it as well. It's like, well, we don't get forever in this world. That sucks. I'm never going to forget. I do feel a little guilty about that being, or the last moment is not how I would have framed it. But I would just ask as your friend that you just don't let that. And I think over time, I think it'll come to that realization.
I think so.
But I mean, shit, dude, we're 3.5 months.
Yeah. And I'm still processing that every day as it just happened. Yeah. You know, and in this situation, that's all you can do is what you can do. I mean, I even sat down and there were 4 Mesa PD officers saying, Jay, there's no foul play here. You did nothing wrong. Yeah. And I remember the whole time I'm pissed off, like, why the hell are you guys asking about me? As I'm sitting there just like emotional, I'm like, why do you care about me? What's going on with her the entire time? You know, and finally, you know, her dad, her brother, everybody's just like, this is not on you. And I just remember getting incredibly angry at myself and just, you know, it's hard to not feel guilty to some extent and feel responsibility, even though the professionals, you know, your family have said this is completely not on you. To some extent, your conscious mind is going to keep reminding this is on you. You're guilty as charged. You know, and I don't think that feeling is, I think that's a natural response, but it's probably going to stick with me for a very, very long time.
Yeah. And so you're the only one from your family here. And is that why you're leaving?
Yes. I have family in Florida. I have, you know, my oldest brother is still in Colorado Springs. I just think it's a good idea in a situation like this when you've experienced a catastrophe to hit that reset button. Right. And for me, if I continued to live out here in Mesa, it could potentially lead to other negative consequences. So the best way to handle that is to lean on the doors that are going to open up. And in this case, it's Florida. You know, my grandfather is just like, I got an extra bedroom. Why don't you come on over? And I think that's going to probably be the best way to heal during this time, is to go to a place I've never been before. Never been to Florida. We've been talking about it since I don't know, 1993 of potentially moving out there.
So you've never been to Florida to visit or to live or period?
Period.
Well, you're about to experience Florida, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then then that tells me your relationship maybe with the family hasn't always been great, or you just don't travel.
So our relationship with the family has kind of been in limbo for so long because they've lived on the East Coast. I grew up on the West Coast. We grew up in Colorado Springs. Right. We never had the chance of traveling around. You know, I grew up with a single mother household, me and my brother, you know. We always stayed in Colorado Springs just outside of Fort Carson. Now, I'm not going to lie. This is not the first time I've packed up and relocated and just gone. When I left Colorado Springs, I moved to San Diego. That's where the story began.
Yep.
And that came from a staycation. I had a friend that just, we need to get you out here. I'm going to start a business, but we need you here. You're like the last piece. And finally, after 4 months, I'm just thinking, I need to get out of here. I need a fresh start. I need to go to places where people are living the lifestyle that I want. And I said, worst comes to worst, a plane ticket one way back to the Springs would probably be maybe $200 at the very least. And, I'm going to be honest, I have not regretted that decision. It led up to a lot of great things, even coming right here. I probably would have never discovered hard parking had I taken that chance. So taking that bet on yourself to go and step into the unknown, I think it just depends on what your intentions are going over there. And you got to have a plan once once your feet hit the ground, what are you doing next? I think that's really what's going to matter. It doesn't matter if I'm going to Florida, if I'm going to the Middle East or something. What's really going to matter is what's going to happen after I arrive. So,
any plans then, other than getting there?
So once I get there, I really need to work on getting back my health together. Right now, I'm borderline disabled. Mm-hmm. And I understand with chemotherapy, it's made me slower. I sometimes struggle going upstairs. I think that really needs to be the first place I need to start with, is I need to get a hold on my health, regardless of what the doctors, if they're going to plan for surgery or more treatment. I think that's the second, the moment I get out there, I need to focus on that. And then we hear all the time when we go onto social media about the fear-mongering of, the government's doing this and that. I think I need to focus on getting my wealth together, building that wealth. And at age 40, because I'm going to be 40 in June, I think there's still a tremendous opportunity to build that. And even as a cancer patient, that a lot of people would say, that's counterintuitive. You might not have a lot of time. I think that's a hell of an assumption to not still try to build something for yourself, even if you are on your deathbed. I think most people should really have the mindset of, I'm going to invest in something. Eventually it's going to be profitable.
I think it's reckless to not have goals and just stop caring about things. Mm-hmm. Right. So I commend you for having that mindset. And that's pretty much the mindset you've always had from what I've known. This doesn't have to be it. I still have goals. I still have aspirations. I still have things I want to try to get accomplished.
Right.
So work towards them. My dear friend, John Vassos, who passed last February, same way he just mesothelioma. He just worked as much as he could all the way down to the end.
Wow.
He'd never stopped working on NSXs, nothing. And it's just, that's just what kept him going.
Wow. And another thing that keeps me up, aside from these events that's happened to me, I always think the what ifs. Mm-hmm. I don't decide to go for these goals. What's going to happen to me? And most people that are in my position, living off Social Security, they don't do well. What if I need a major surgery that requires like a $10,000 deductible? You're screwed. You are basically at that point on your deathbed at that point. So I feel, even though my health is not in great shape right now, I feel like I'm very privileged still, that I'm functioning and I could still do something about it before that becomes default. Like, okay, no matter what you do, you're screwed. Now you have to live that lifestyle. So I can't help but feel incredibly grateful that I'm still functional in the sense that I can make a difference and still change the course of the direction of where I could very well be, and choose to live a better life, and still build something for myself down the road.
Like I said, I appreciate that mindset. There's a lot of different ways we can go at this point in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
because I know you've had some really cool things happen to you here.
Mhm.
So let's bounce back to Arizona, because we're not done with Florida, right?
Right.
We're not done with Florida.
We're
with
not
that,
even
with
there
that
yet.
Jacksonville Jaguars jersey on. What have you been able to experience here recently? Some really cool shit.
So probably the coolest thing I've gotten to experience was through a company called the Young Motorcars in Scottsdale. They're an exotic car dealership, and they have some pretty cool cars on display.
We did a podcast from there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the way that started actually was once again through my cancer treatment. There's a big thing going around within the cancer community with the waiting room situation where you get incredibly nervous. So the last time I went there, before that event at Young Motorcars, I went to the waiting room, got checked out, and my blood pressure was like 160 over something because I was as nervous as all hell, you know?
Yeah.
And I just remember my oncologist telling me very casually, we'll probably have to put you on, blood pressure medication. And I'm just thinking in my head, hell no, I don't want that. I understand she has good intentions. It's not ill intentions, but I don't want any more medications.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, how do I keep myself calm before going into one of these appointments? And Young Motorcars just so happens to be right up the street from Ironwood Cancer Research Centers. It's literally like 10 minutes away with heavy traffic. So I thought to myself, okay, my dream car, the Diablo 6.0, is over there. I'm going to go take a look at that for a little bit. That's going to bring my levels down.
Sure.
So I went there, I took a quick video, like this is how a waiting room should be. And I tagged the car and I tagged Young Motorcars. Went over to my appointment, had a great appointment. My blood pressure was normal. So I'm driving home thinking, man, what a great day that was.
Yeah.
So later that night, I remember receiving a DM from Young Motorcars by the name of Michael Young, the individual that owns that company. He's like, hey, Jay.
Super nice guy.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he is.
And he just said, hey, why don't you come on back? We got something planned for you. When do you have free time? And I remember refreshing the screen. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that this is happening. So I even asked, is this for real? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Come on back. And so I get in touch with them and we plan a date and I come on up. And the Diablo was sitting outside along a bunch of other cars. This happened on the day of the Strad Pizza unveiling, like a couple hours before that.
Okay.
So I kind of got a little preview of what was going to show up at Strad Pizza that night. But I couldn't believe I had a second opportunity to ride in a Diablo 6.0 around Scottsdale. I do want to point out that this is my second time going for a ride in a Diablo 6.0. First time was back in Colorado Springs. I got to go 3 laps in a 6.0 around PPIR. That was my very first experience. And hearing that car come to life at over 100
crazy.
miles.
So that's not just a ride in a car. Like that's a ride in a car.
Is the best $40 I've ever spent in my life.
Wow.
Because there was a motorsports carnival back then. And I had the choice between that or a Spiker S8. I was like, give me the Diablo 6.0. And I have YouTube videos of that going around. It's a red 6.0, black wheels with the red halos on it. Beautiful car. But going for a ride in it at full speed, from my perspective, is one thing. Going for a ride in a city environment, just day-to-day uses, that's a whole different other experience. So that car driving around Scottsdale, it is a dream come true. That's all I can really say. You feel the car come to life. You're connected with the road. You just feel the mechanicals coming in. That V12 just giving you constant feedback.
Wow.
And it just brings me back to this is why I had a Countach poster on my wall growing up. And one of the coolest things, and I wish I had gotten a picture of it, was seeing the reflection of me sitting in the car driving by some windows. To me, it just felt like I had accomplished my goal, my automotive goal in life. I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
That's a huge bucket list check mark.
Yeah. And I don't care how often I go for a ride in a Diablo. I get it feels like the first time. I'm excited. I can't wait. So I'm thinking that's the end of that. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go on the Strad Pizza, yada, yada, yada. We get back. And Michael, I remember kind of hinting, was like, we're going to take that thing out for a spin next. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's the Porsche or something. No, he's pointing towards the Bugatti Veyron.
Oh, geez.
And my heart sank even further. I couldn't believe that that was next. And this Bugatti Veyron was formerly owned by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got an opportunity to sit inside of it, driver's side, then passenger side. And it was a totally different experience from getting out of the Diablo and getting into this thing. Then going for a ride in it is crazy, even more of a completely different experience. You know me, when I talk about the Lamborghini Diablo, the F-15 Eagle is not too far away from is not too far from the conversation. That's what I often will compare it to, because it's a very complicated piece of machinery. It's very difficult to maintain, but at the same time, it just gives performance like nothing else.
Right.
When jumping into a Bugatti Veyron and going out for a little spin, just around the block, if I had to compare it to if I had to compare this thing to the Bugatti Veyron, it's really an otherworldly experience.
It's like you're going from one of the first, not really, I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people around our age,
mm-hmm.
I would say that's like one of the first super cars, because back then we've had this conversation on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define sports car, exotic, supercar, now hypercar, right? So like a Diablo is like a supercar,
Mm-hmm.
just past that exotic, and the Veyron is like one of the first hypercars. That we define hypercars. I can't even imagine. I've been in neither one of them, but it's gotta just be like a completely different experience.
And it was. My brain was automatically saying, this is just going to be a really fast Bentley with the motor in the back. And I couldn't be further from the truth. The moment it started up, it sounded like a V8 times 10. It's like, well, what the heck is that? It just gives you a whole different tone. And then the scariest part of all is you don't feel really the car making connection with the ground. It's a weird feeling. You're just gliding on a cloud. In a cloud that's giving you feedback, mechanical feedback, because you're hearing the turbos going. You're hearing that big old 16-cylinder engine just a couple feet away from you.
Wow.
And it's one of the coolest feelings in the world just going down the road. And to think that, from a dead stop just accelerating, you can outrun a crotch rocket quite easily.
Right. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. And it's it's luxury, but it's performance at the same time. So it's essentially a cloud with the heartbeat is the best way I'll forever talk about the Bugatti Veyron. It's literally a cloud with a heartbeat.
And that opportunity, dude, I mean, that's a Diablo is a 1%er's car.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a Veyron is a 1%er's car.
Right.
And you were not only were you in it, you got to ride and feel the car. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Do you still have aspirations to, as I'm looking at the thing you handed me when we walked in, build your own cars? We talked about that last time.
Absolutely. Because I think to myself, what if I buy a real Diablo? What's that going to look like? What's going to happen in that situation is it's going to be treated like a classic car. It's going to be treated like an investment.
Right.
So
not a lot of joy, just a lot of staring at.
Right. And it's going to be a lot of asset management. I'm not sure if I would appreciate it as much as a high-end replica built by North American exotic replicars or something. Something that if I want to take it out on a drive, I want to take it to the tail end of the Dragon, take it Cars and Coffee or whatever, I'm not going to have that guilt that, hey, I'm pissing all over the real Mona Lisa. It's just a poster, that I can put wherever in my house. I don't really want to destroy and tamper a real Diablo. I'd much rather take, like I said, a higher end replica and enjoy that. And if something breaks, oh well, Rock Auto's got parts, AutoZone's got parts. So I know the turnaround on that's going to be really cheap, quick, versus that thing, which is just as complicated as an F-15. You're talking about a very long turnaround and an astronomical cost per, when it's time to go and do the service. Engine out service is not cheap.
Right.
I've mentioned many times looking at the price tag of the Mario Andretti Diablo back in Colorado Springs, which I have plenty of pictures of. On average, the owner of that car was spending about $50,000 just for basic maintenance.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, and this was in 2008 money. So you can imagine we're probably already double, probably over 150,000 for the same amount of work to be done in today's dollars. So
what we have over here, this is your other project aspirations. You want to talk about that at all?
yeah. So that over there is
It's his top secret, so I'm not going to, display it, but, I'm going to, this is my copy.
yeah, that's
So
your
here's
copy.
here's what's going to happen with this. You're going to sign it, and it's going to be behind me on this wall with all this other stuff that I've received from friends and guests. So just so you know.
And that's quite okay if you want to display it, and I'll tell a little story about where that inspiration came from.
Let's hear it.
So if the Lamborghini Diablo is an F-15 Eagle, you know the replacement for the F-15 is the F-22 Raptor.
Sure.
But instead of building an F-22 Raptor for the streets, because that already exists, we got the Revolto for the F-22 Raptor of the streets. This is the idea of the what if, the second, let's give this design a second opinion. Northrop's YF-23, the competitor for the F-22. Gorgeous looking airplane, had a lot of potential. I mean, if you've seen it, it probably looks like something off Macross Plus.
Right. Yeah.
Just something out of this world. And it really is a shame that the Air Force didn't put it in production. So I kind of took that idea and I said, you know what? What if I ran with this? And I took the three most rarest cars I can think of. The Astera Commendatory 112i, one of one. Then the Vector W8. You rode in the Vector W8.
Yeah. I mean, you're one of the few people that understand how that is because we're part of the same Vector group. And that was also one of those things where the guy who owned it at the time, he didn't want any photos taken in his warehouse. He's old school, thinking that someone's going to geotag it and come to his warehouse and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool, but God, dog, I wish I would have a photo with that car, and I never took one.
Yeah.
Because that was my poster car. That was my, without question, dream car. Obviously, we all like the McLaren F1. And that's a given.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like my Diablo to you. Is that Vector was just,
wow.
That was the first car that, I mean, I've always liked cars, but that was the first poster car, was actually like the W2 prototype on the wall. But then I bought all the magazines just for that car on the cover. And it's just like, and that was the car of the cover car. That was the chassis I rode in too. It was crazy, but
yeah, I remember.
It's enough about me.
I remember living in California in 2014. I got to meet Jerry Weigert in person and got to see the WX3 in person, and that was a really cool experience. It's kind of funny. You go to Cars and Coffee, you're looking for the car, and the first thing you encounter is the man behind the car.
That's crazy.
I'll never forget that. I was talking with my buddy Mike. He goes by Big Orange Supra on Instagram. I was having a three-way conversation. I just remember seeing Jerry Weigert and just, that's him. There's a Vector here. And that was a really cool day. I took lots of pictures, asked him a bunch of questions. Apparently we were there for 3 hours, even though it felt like we were there for 10 minutes. That's how many questions I asked.
Well, I lost 10 minutes to you.
Yeah.
36 hours for Jerry.
Yeah. So it was a really cool experience. We share a lot of the similar ideas. In his mind, when I asked him what's the best airplane in the world, he says whatever the Air Force has as their main workhorse, that's the best airplane. So to him, I see it as he thinks the F-22 Raptor is the best. To me, the F-23 is the best. The last car on my list to add to the F-23 is the Tommy Kaira ZZ2, which we've only seen in Gran Turismo. I don't know if that's a car you're familiar with, but it kind of looks like a Diablo mixed with a Nissan Skyline. And there's only one of one in the world, and that's in Japan. Blue, gorgeous looking car. Very few people know about it. So I figured with these three designs, I can really run with something, and then going back to when I actually started sketching this out, I had my little Foxbat moment when my buddy Art Vandelay posted up a picture of an Aston Martin Valkyrie. And I remember being really excited since the Countach, like, this is a really cool car, joy for a minute. And then I take a step back and I'm like, man, there's not a car in my garage or in my friend circle's garage that's going to be able to touch that. So the question in my head was, could you really take a Corvette, a special model Corvette like a ZR1 do you take a car like that or a highly modified Supra? How do you counter something that completely changes the landscape, the rules for life, the rules from there on out? And that's really where my supercar Corsario F23, I refer to those two things. That's where that really started. And the goal with that is to not go out and chase track times, is to not go out and bash the Valkyrie. It's really just to have a different perspective. And to really, it's really to go back to the analog way of things. Because you know me, I'm not a big fan of modern day supercars. I can't stand the way the Temerario, I can't stand that car. That's the first Lamborghini besides the Urus I hate. When I see it, I feel a little disgusted. And most McLarens today, I cannot stand to look at them.
Yeah. There's a couple of really hot ones.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But the special ones, we know very few people have it, but every influencer that's trying to, get clickbait has the entry-level model. And when you get close to these cars, you realize they're not really well built. They're a lot of corners cut, and they're very simple. And I cannot stand that about most modern-day supercars. Sure. And to me, the final straw was kind of like the Ferrari F80. I'm like, really? You're going to put a V6 in that? And then your base model car has a V12. That's almost a slap in the face to all of us enthusiasts.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah. So that's where the premises of that is coming from. And I don't know how much this thing is going to cost to build. My goal is to keep it cheaper than a C8, but not to build something like a Bricklin, for instance. Really it's to offer something very simple to build, simple to maintain. And that's going to be very hard to do in today's world because everything is hyperinflated. Even with a 3D printer, it's not like I could say, hey, let me go 3D print this supercar and I'm going to go out and go pick fights with Koenigseggs. It doesn't work that way.
Sure. Did you see, it's because we're filming this right now. Tokyo Auto Salon is going on right now. Did you see the little K car that they built and made it look like a Coral Q R32?
Yeah, I saw a little picture of that, and that was really awesome.
I thought that was AI at first, but there's a video of it walking around, and that little son of a bitch, like that makes me want to go to the garage and turn my Honda Z into a Coral Q car. I mean, that thing is fantastic.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that's going to be the future of kit cars in general, is to take something like a K car and make it look like,
literally a toy. That thing looks like a toy.
Yeah, and it's not insulting to the brand because even the brand will look at it and be like, well, it looks like a giant toy, so we're not mad. We're just going to point and laugh at it, and that's it, and move about it.
Yeah, we're going to let you be creative. It's kind of like Alex out here with the Tumbler golf cart and the Tumbler itself, the Batman Tumbler.
Right.
The dude has the Batman Tumbler, and he has a Tumbler golf cart. It looks just like it, but short and squatty.
Yeah.
Man, wouldn't it be fun just to have that kind of money? That's what I appreciate. So the people who have the money, who do fun shit with it, those are the guys where I'm like, dude, thumbs up, man.
Right. And a lot of guys, thankfully, here in Scottsdale are cool like that. They'll allow most of us to go talk to them. Because when I was in San Diego, there was always that fine line that they just knew that, hey, this guy has a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Everything was at the car meets.
Yeah.
Whereas out here, I've been invited to all kinds of things just because I'm doing my thing. And they're like, hey, you do HVAC? Well, why don't you come to this meet? And I have some incredible conversations from people who own hypercars, and here I am, a regular 9 to 5er, and I'm having these conversations with people. That's a really awesome thing. And they're enjoying it. You
know what it is? It's the fact that you can carry the conversation with them.
Right.
It's like Jordan, low baller GTR. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know he had these cars, you would never know it. And like you, he's very well versed in the cars. Mm-hmm. Or like Jorge of Tormenting Tarmac. Mm-hmm. Same deal. You guys can just sit there and talk cars all day, and not in an annoying way, in a fun and engaging way. Mm-hmm. And because of the conversation, those who are purists, I wouldn't say purists, those who have these cars, that have always been fans of cars, not just fans of the money, they're able to have those conversations, I think, with you and enjoy it. Versus, to your point, and there's nothing wrong with influencers, but it's the stereotype, right? Versus, You have this 18-year-old who made it big. Good for him. He bought the car for clicks. He bought the car because that's what you're supposed to buy. Doesn't know shit about the car. You're not going to have those same conversations with that person.
Right. And it's funny you brought up my recent status update about that. There's just so many of these people. I'm not going to mention names because I am trying to stay away from a certain argument that's going down with a well-known Bugatti Chiron owner. That's all I'm going to throw out there.
Not a lot of people out there that own Bugatti Chiron. So.
But there's a few on Instagram. One of them, there's a lot of drama associated with him, but it really comes from that universe of, hey, you're fat, you're stupid, you're ugly. Give me $20,000 and I'll show you how to get ripped, rich, and any female you want. And what goes through my head is, well, that sounds great, but where am I supposed to invest my money at? That's always one of the questions. As a cancer patient, what can you show me? What kind of diet plan you can put that'll actually help me out? Not some shit that you're putting in Chat GPT, because that's what a lot of them will do. Is they'll stick something on, they'll ask the question there, and then it's literally copy and paste. And then their relationship advice, talking about, I get bitches, blah blah blah. I'd rather get one girl that's going to push me to level up, versus these girls with the BBLs, the freaking duck lips. And I'm not here to bash those women if there's some that are actually listen. Yeah, you can. But when I see that, I just see low value. And a lot of guys are going to be like, oh, Jay, well, you've never been with a high value woman. Trust me, I don't want those. I want to make that perfectly clear. I wouldn't want one of those. I would want a woman that's going to push me and help me level up. And Katie was that woman. Yeah,
I was gonna say you have one, and it's the materialistic thing. It's a former guest. We sat here and burned 5 minutes on like reality TV, and it's like when they do that, they're not doing it to attract the next guy. They're doing it to look better than the next girl. It's a competition between women. It always has been. Right?
Yeah.
When they dress up to go to the club, the women notice what other women are wearing, what the shoes, their nails.
Right.
They notice that shit before we notice any of it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like this forever competition between themselves. So they get the BBL, the duck, all that other stuff, and they want to attract dudes, but they're also, in order to attract the guy, you have to make sure you look better than the next woman.
Correct.
So it's like this one thing.
Yeah.
But the snake oil salesman is basically what it is. I'm going to get you ripped like me, for X amount, or buy into my program, and I'll teach you how to make generational wealth for just 3 hours a day.
Right.
Right. And it's just like, it's really I don't want to say it's all a scam, but it's the same hustle.
Exactly. Ever since Andrew Tate, which, by the way, I don't bash him. I think he has offered a lot of value for free. If you just listen to what he says and do what he says, I mean, you're probably going to change your life in some kind of way, but a lot of people try to copycat what he has done. And I'm not bashing him in my words. I want to make that clear. I think he does a lot of great. There are some things I disagree with him on.
Yeah, he's a very, he's an interesting person.
Right.
Right. Because I think there's things that, like, when I first heard Andrew Tate, I was like, oh, okay, wow, this guy. But then you start hearing him more. I've been in these chat rooms where he's talking, like on X.
Right.
And then you start learning more about him and this other stuff. It's like, okay, well, that's,
Yeah.
But it sounds like you found kind of, I wouldn't say a silver lining, but there's positive stuff you can pull out of pretty much anybody who has success.
Yeah, and I tend to, study a lot of guys from a distance, especially here in, the Scottsdale area. And I've noticed a lot of them, they're not trying to go out and flex. They own very big businesses. They have very nice cars, but you don't see them on social media. Yeah, check out my SVJ. They don't give a shit about that. They're focused on their families. They're focused on building their business, like offering value, legitimate value to the world. And to get to that point, we all know damn well you can't work just 2 hours a month. Like some of these influencers are selling you on that fallacy that, just 2 hours a month, just doing this online, you're going to make 7 figures. I find that very hard to believe. I mean, maybe I guess if you throw the ball downfield, eventually you're going to get a touchdown if you do it. But most of the time you're not going to get anywhere just by throwing it downfield. You got to have a plan of how to get downfield and navigate. And that's what I see a lot of with these fake entrepreneurs, as I would call it, because if you look at real entrepreneurs, there's a lot of growth behind it. There's a lot of failure that they've gone through.
A lot of failure, a lot of sweat equity.
And a lot of them tend to pick themselves back up and keep moving, whereas people like Jhae Lopez, which we've seen, in my garage, got these books and I got this Lambo over here. Where's he at today with his little courses?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that I share my last name with that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I really hate that.
Well, it's not a very rare last name, Lopez.
Right.
So I think you'll be all right with that.
Yeah, but it just sucks, that people even would entertain that, just like J-Lo. Yes, my roots come from the same island as J-Lo, but we're completely total opposite.
It's funny. She, my wife, I think she's completely changed her mind on J-Lo, but for the longest, J-Lo could do no wrong.
Yeah.
And more and more and more stuff started coming out about her. And finally, my wife's kind of like, I don't know if I like her anymore. It's like, okay, well, congratulations for opening your eyes. You know what I mean? Speaking of opening eyes, and I still want to get to Jacksonville here.
Yeah.
But you have made some posts, and I've probably liked the posts of some stuff that's going on. Right now, we have a lot of shit going on in our world. Right now, we have a lot of shit going on in our country.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any opinions on Venezuela, or do you have any opinions on the recent tragedy?
So for
in Minneapolis, and even there's some shit that went down in Portland. I mean, this is the week all this shit's going on.
Yeah.
So pick your poison, I guess.
So for Venezuela, I think a lot of people who have known me very well know my opinion about Nicolas Maduro. I'm going to be honest.
It's probably the same as most people actually know.
I don't like that piece of shit, and I'm glad they did what they had to do to him. He's not dead. So I'm not going to say he had it coming, but he needed to be removed. And I think Venezuela is going to be better for that. I got a lot of backlash when I made that opinion known on Instagram. Like, so many liberals were just attacking me. Oh, how can you support this when you're Puerto Rican? And it's like, come on, dude. A year ago, he was talking about invading the island itself using Brazilian troops. Like, I'm supposed to be okay with that? No. He had to go, and I think Latin America is headed in the right direction based on that. What happened in Minneapolis? I mean, that's
let's go back to Maduro really quick, because one thing that I've said is, if you really want to know what the impact is, the immediate impact, look at the people.
Mm-hmm.
And of Latin culture, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are very happy that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Even because I get if you don't like the current administration.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why some people wouldn't. A lot of it is feelings, not facts. Mm-hmm. But either way, and I've seen some of our current president's biggest haters, I would call them,
mm-hmm.
come out and say, I don't like that son of a bitch, but this is great. And I cried when I heard what happened because I was so excited. This is such a big... So for me, for the people who have nothing to do with this, the paid actors, a lot of them are just paid actors, right? Or some of them are just like diehard anti-Orange Man, to come out and speak on shit they don't know anything about.
Right.
Like, just educate yourself.
Right.
And we don't know the impact of this. We won't know the impact of this for 3, 4, 5 years.
You're absolutely on
because nothing happens overnight, right? So maybe it was a good thing. Maybe we'll find out it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's all about oil. Is it? It's all about people. Is it? No, this is what I told my wife, because we hadn't really talked about it much, and we probably won't. We have differences of opinions on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
She goes, well, it was just for oil. And I go, well, maybe it was, but as a positive spin, the people are excited too.
Right.
I said, I don't know of any country that has ever gone in just to liberate the people without getting something out of it.
Right.
But the people are more than happy to give it to you for their liberation, right? So it's like, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And
I said that last January. I said, history will tell us if our leaders are any good or not.
Right.
What happens today and tomorrow won't.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about the whole Maduro thing.
Yeah, and I think I'll agree with you on that, even though some of my views are pretty harsh. When I heard that he was captured, I'm like, this was an automatic win, but I agree with you there. It's going to take time to really see if that was a good decision to get him out of there or if somebody worse is going to step up and do more
I've
harm.
listened to some Venezuelan reporters say that they're excited that happened, but there's more work to be done. And there's others that are far more dangerous that are just kind of waiting in the shadows. But you did say something important. I know I said I was done with that, but I'm not. He was captured for trial.
Yeah.
We've bombed and killed other people. I'm sorry, unalived. We have to say that now.
Yeah,
we
we
can't
have to
say
say
the K
unalived,
word. Everything's
yeah.
unalived. He unalived.
Yeah.
We've unalived other people in the past. This one was captured.
Yeah.
And will be held to trial or court, whatever, for their crimes. But I think that's a big distinction that no one's talking about. So
yeah, and who knows? Maybe he'll end up being Diddy's cellmate for God knows how long.
Dude, all the AI videos right now. It's funny though. He said he was shocked at how many rights he has in the United States as a prisoner.
Yeah.
Right to remain silent. They read him his rights. When they arraigned him, he was just surprised. He's like, wow, I could post potentially bail. I have the right to not talk, because he's a dictator, right? So,
Yeah.
And then the misinformation is we went in there and grabbed their president. No, he was a dictator,
Right.
who forcefully took office.
Yeah, he was never their president to begin with, and
He lost the election, and he forcefully took it back. Like that's not the same thing.
And
so
I read that a lot, and I'm just every time I see that comment, I just think you did not research the topic. Instead, you drank the Kool-Aid of we hate the big bad orange taco in office. That's what is on your mind. And I get a lot of heat seekers. That's what I call them, heat seekers, NPCs.
Yeah.
That I'll leave a comment, and the next thing you know, they're crashing out in the comments. Then they're in my DMs telling me, "Oh, I wish your cancer would defeat you."
Oh yeah, nice.
It's like, oh, so now now you're completely emotional.
Yeah.
Logic and reasoning went out the damn window before you even hit that sent button. The sent button.
And it usually does. And I'm the same way. I try to, before I react to anything, unless it's like my really close circle or just conversation, I try to research a little bit,
Right.
and at least try to understand what happened, what the immediate implications are, what this could mean before I say anything.
Right. And I also think it's important to everybody needs to give themselves time to process.
Yeah.
Because like the Minneapolis situation, it's very easily to get triggered just by watching what happened, regardless of which side you're on.
And we're talking about the 37-year-old Renee Good. Yeah. Being shot by the ICE agent.
Transitioning to that, she's from the state that I'm from. And, I know there's a lot of opinions on that right now. And even as, where I stand at, I still see that as very unfortunate that it had to happen that way. It's unfortunate for both sides.
We're recording this 2 days removed from the incident, and there's already been so much stuff that's come out.
Right.
I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so with that, I think it's a very unfortunate thing. Anytime, I don't care who, if somebody's dying and it's publicized, it's not good for this country. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican. It's just not good to watch somebody get shot by a federal agent.
Yeah.
On that same note, I think there's a huge epidemic accountability issue here.
There is.
And we've reached the point in our society we've acknowledged that selective hearing exists. Now it's selective vision, selective acknowledgement. The facts can be right in your face of this is how it happened, this is what unfolded, but now we're dealing with I would say a lifestyle now, because they're really trying to turn this radical way of life into a lifestyle where they're just incredibly violent. They want to see what they want to see. They want to acknowledge what they believe fits into their world or their narrative. So it doesn't matter.
And
these individuals. I'm not going to even call them Democrats anymore, because I'm going to be honest. I think if we
I hate reading that. Yeah. Honestly. So
I just think that, if we brought back JFK from the dead and he saw what was going on, I don't think he'd be very happy, with what these people have turned into be. And I can't call them Democrats. I call them NPCs, nowadays, because they literally behave like the players on GTA, except now you don't have to jump on a motorcycle and go kick their fender. You do something that's out of their thought process or their reality, they're going to come follow you and harass you, cause a trail of destruction in the process.
It's too bad, right?
Yeah.
There's stories that I will share, I want to share, and as soon as they when they say the Democrats or they say the Republicans, I don't share it because it seems so partisan. when the story itself, you can draw your own conclusion from it. Now people are saying the leftists and the right, because people stopped saying Republicans and Democrats, but it's still the same thing. And someone is listening or watching to this right now is probably thinking, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear political talk. This isn't politics. This is life. This is our society. This is what's going on in the world today. This is what's going on in America today. And you're a part of this.
Exactly.
So you need to have an opinion. I saw someone say that video, especially the popular angle, that people just selectively pick angles, regardless. The people on the right pick the angle from the far away from the front where you can clearly see what happened.
Right.
And the people on the left pick the angle from behind the car where you can't really see what happened. And someone says, this is the ultimate Rorschach test. I said, you're absolutely right. This is the current gold or brown. Is it brown and blue dress? What color is the dress? Is it brown? Remember that? Remember that thing?
I kind of remember.
Is it a blue and copper dress, or is it a white and gold dress or whatever? And I remember that because I remember looking at the dress and it being one color. My coworker said it's another color. I looked at it and it was the other color, and I couldn't get my eyes to see the original color. So point being that people see what they want to see based on what their mind is telling them they should be seeing.
Right.
And this is like the ultimate. My wife asked me about it, and I didn't want to, I knew what happened and I didn't want to talk about it because I already know what that opinion would be. And what I heard was, oh, it's so sad what happened to that woman. I was like, oh, you mean the woman in Minnesota? Yeah. And I go, yeah, it was terrible. Like, it shouldn't have happened. That's my opinion on it. And she, well, she just wasn't doing anything. Well, actually she was.
Right.
And I knew that when it happened. Now, 2 days removed, we know even more. But I have the opinion. Well, there's three opinions here. There's the diehard people on the left who says this was murder. She was innocent. She did nothing wrong. There's the diehard people on the right that say she tried to kill the officer. She tried to unalive.
Yeah.
There I go again. She tried to unalive the ICE agent, and they're not police anyway. They're not even law enforcement. Well, technically, yes, they absolutely are law enforcement. But, she tried to run him over. He was in self-defense. He was well within his rights. And I said, and then I'm on the third side. I said, both things can be true at once. She was not accidentally there. She may have dropped her kid off before she decided to go and block traffic on purpose,
right?
Which is proven. And could the officer not have unloaded on her and they arrested her later? That could also be true. Like, all those things can be true at once. But then when you say that, the people on the left say, no, you're a Trumper. The people on the right said, no, get out of here, libtard. Are you blind? And it's like, no, I'm just a person that tries to see everything. And so this isn't cut and dry. A year or two ago, I had my friend Brian on here, and I would bring him on for stuff like this, specifically these type of things. And there was a shooting in Houston, the Houston Taquillera shooting.
Yeah.
And this kid, I don't know if you remember this video, guy goes in and he robs everybody, and as he's walking out, as he passed one of the patrons, the patron has his gun and gets out and basically unloads his clip on this guy as this guy was leaving the store. Yeah. I think it was maybe 7 shots on him, maybe more.
I think it was more.
And so we watched that because they shot the dude, walked up to him and hit him 1 or 2 or maybe 3 more times. We're like, okay, the first shot, you could say self-defense. The rest of it seems like it's excessive, and that was the gray area. Was he justified in doing that? Well, yeah, especially in the state of Texas. What we found out is the gun that the guy robbed with wasn't even a real gun. It was a replica. I mean, of course, you don't have to check that. That doesn't matter. It's just the sad part of the story. The dude robbed a diner with a replica gun and got killed, right? Yeah. And that's what's going to happen. But I would have put money on the grand jury indicting the shooter. Nothing ever came of it. And to me, this is kind of one of those deals where it's like, ooh, if these people believe it's one way and these people believe it's the other way, then it's not cut and dry. Yeah. I have my own thoughts on it, especially based on everything we've seen now, and I'm very firm in my belief here. But I just don't understand how someone can look at something like that and say it's definitely this or it's definitely that, and it's nothing in between.
And I think that's very important to have that third opinion, to really approach it with a non-biased perspective to get the best results on how we're going to fix this issue. Because right now, the state of the world that we live in today, it's almost like it's a mass recruiting campaign of, are you left, are you right?
Yeah.
Nobody
It
is
sucks.
taking a step back to just say, hey, wait a minute, does any of this bullshit even make sense to us? I think that's really a starting point, and I think there needs to be more of this, of a non-perspective. Even if you are, left or right, I just think there has to be a non-biased opinion, and you have to take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, does any of this make sense?
You know what the funny thing is, before we pivot to football, is I saw somebody else and they made this point, and God, it just made so much sense. And I wish I could remember. I watched so many clips.
Mm-hmm.
I watched so many news clips, because someone could be watching this or listening to me like, oh, you're just a clip watcher. You're drawing your conclusion from clips. No, I'm not talking 20-second clips.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking minutes.
Yeah.
Whether it's Anderson Cooper or if it's Abby Phillip on CNN or if it's Jesse Waters, which is obviously extremely right side bias, or, if it's some of these people that are obviously extremely left biased.
Right.
I watched and listened to these interviews, these short clips. But one thing that's just like, the person said, okay, so January 6th, it was all about protecting the officers, and all those rioters need to be in jail. These poor officers, I think one of them unalived himself afterwards.
Right.
These poor officers. Now it's these poor people, F the officers, block them, throw shit at them, lay on their cars, yell and scream. Mm-hmm. One of the things with this woman in Minneapolis, because I don't know if you saw the interview, they interviewed a neighbor, someone who lived there. Mm-hmm. And she said she heard the commotion. She came out. But there's a very important thing that she said that no one's talking about. Mm. She said, I heard the whistles, and the whistles is a sign that ICE is here. Why does everybody in the neighborhood have whistles?
That is a very good point.
Why does she know that? Right? And that supports, and then she says, well, the woman that got shot, she was blocking the road. She was doing her job, blocking the road. That's what she was there to do. Mm-hmm. And then, then she said, well, the cop shot her and blah, blah, blah. And I don't understand. And I understand that too. Like she doesn't really have the full clarity of the full situation. Mm-hmm. But what she did know is why those whistles were blowing.
Yeah.
What she did know is this, Renee was in the car blocking and obstructing. Mm-hmm. And what we do know is that Renee's wife was outside of the car filming the whole thing, because that's what people do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the woman who said about the whistles and confirmed, she got on the news later on CNN and said something completely different. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, you can't trust the source anymore. But no one's talking about the fact that she was talking about the whistles. And now when you watch with that, knowing that, when you watch all these videos, all you're going to hear are whistles.
Yeah.
Because these are organized protesters and anti-ICE, and they're taught to do this in a certain way to try not to get in trouble. And lo and behold, they're saying now that Renee, she's met all these anti-ICE groups at her kid's school, and she's part of that. So,
that's
again,
terrifying to think of.
Yeah, 48 hours later, we have all this other information.
Yeah.
And so one picture of her is probably the best picture they could find. Mm-hmm. And she shouldn't. I'm never going to say she deserved what happened.
Neither am I.
Yep. No, I'm never going to say that. But she wasn't this angel, perfect person that they prop her up to be. And they share the probably the one decent photo of her with long hair.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Every other photo you see, the last photo with her and her wife, shaved head, looking crazy on the steps of being anti-ICE and all that kind of shit. So it's like, that's just waiting for it to come out. And even in the face of all that, people are going to be fighting so hard to say that she was murdered in cold blood, unalived in cold blood. She was just trying to turn around. She just dropped her kid off at school. The officers, what are you going to do when they come up and people in masked? It's like it literally says right there.
Yeah,
ICE. Sheriff's department, ICE or whatever. So it's just this world we live in is crazy, but we live in it. Mm-hmm. And I wish people would just take a step back. Like, what are you fighting for? What do you stand for? If I know people that have protested, so we know that there's some real protesters out there, but we also know there's people getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
I watched a video earlier. I don't know if you saw the video of the person who lit the flag on fire the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that person showed up, lit the flag, and just left.
Yeah.
And other activists and protesters saw that and thought it was very strange and curious. Who is this person? Because we've seen other videos where people light flags and they're still there, celebrating and boycotting, whatever else. So I saw where they followed this guy to a corner and they're asking him, dude, what was that? Who are you? Why are you here? Why did you light that flag? Do you work for the government? Do you blah, blah, blah? That's bullshit. So for the people who were exercising their constitutional right to protest in a peaceful way, good for them.
Right.
But we know there's agitators and people with other interests. They don't give a fuck about anything that's going on, why they're protesting. They're just there disturbed. Yeah. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I call those people chaos creators, just like content creators. And you also mentioned the guy that, lit the flag on fire. I think it's very interesting that in France, somebody very similar did the same thing. So it just makes you wonder, is this happening just here, in stateside, or is there something else bigger going on?
Those piles of bricks that get dropped off, wow, are they convenient every time something happens?
Yeah.
When Maduro got captured, less than 6 hours later, the entire downtown New York was covered in all these Maduro flags and all these signs. Where did those thousands of people come from between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.?
Right. And it makes you wonder, who's coordinating all of this stuff? If possible, I mean, I would like to know who coordinates this stuff. They must have a hell of a job coordinating whatever industry they work in to just have signs ready, flags ready, and literally just have everything planned out, especially during times where we literally within hours know of something happening. Yeah. It's like clockwork.
And it makes sense, right? Because during the DNC and the RNC, there were ads to pay people to show up to make it look bigger. So if you're paying people to show up and make the crowd look bigger, probably paying people to do this too. In fact, we know that. I've watched reporters, independent journalists, take pictures like, okay, there's Jay Lopez. All right. Well, Jay Lopez was also in Chicago last year. Yeah. Jay Lopez was in Houston, fighting for this. Jay Lopez was in Miami. The same Jay Lopez. Your money is linked back to these NGOs. Like those are factual people out there that are getting paid to do this. And just for someone to, I can't blame the people for not believing that because their algorithms and their news feeds don't tell them that. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And then with the case of this woman in Minneapolis, what I said to my good friend Wes, I was like, well, I'm curious to see what my wife's going to say because she's going to say based on whatever algorithm her algorithm feeds her.
Yeah.
And of course, the only view she saw was the view that I knew she saw. And again, it's still up to interpretation, but if that's all the data you're being fed, then that's all the data you're going to go off of. And lo and behold, you already have a disdain for the entire system and what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So
pretty much that's what's going on. And there's always a spokesperson behind both sides, trying to sell you on one or the other. It's like, join up and do this. There's
and it's
a lot
so
of
obvious too when you listen to it, right? Like I said,
Yeah.
I'll watch right wing media. I'll watch left wing media. And I just kind of laugh. I'm like, oh, come on, man, you're pulling at straws right now, right now. Like, there's no way,
This is like watching, to me, it's like watching WWE at times. You could just know that John Cena is going to go win the belt at WrestleMania. You just read the storyline. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, there's like, this guy just assaulted me. And I'm looking at the video. I'm like, dude, you were in their face bugging the shit out of them. Their bodyguard or whatever put a hand on you and say, hey, please step back. That's not assault.
Yeah.
Like, you're bugging the shit out of them. And I'm talking, I've watched right-wing influencers do this. And I'm just like, dude, I'm going to block you on social media. Like, hey, all you're doing is just peddling this bullshit.
Yeah.
But pivot from that. There's probably nobody still listening or watching. But at this point, you have a Jacksonville Jaguars shirt on.
I do.
Big Jacksonville fan?
I have been ever since they came into the league in 1995. I've been with them ever since. Prior to that, I'm not going to lie, I was riding with the Cowboys. I was a big fan of them. And then after they won the Super Bowl, I saw the commercial for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was like, that's my next team. And been with them since. And, even during that time, being a little kid growing up in Colorado, John Elway was the guy.
Of course.
So I remember getting picked in school in 1996. Oh, the Jaguars are going to lose. You'll see, yada, yada, yada. We went into Mile High. We kicked the shit out of them. And I walk into school the next day, where's everybody at? Where's that excitement at?
Well, who's your favorite player over the years? Was it Mark Brunell? Was it David Gerard?
I would say it'd be David Gerard because I got to watch a lot more of what he did. I mean, surprisingly, we'd be lucky if we got one game aired in Colorado once a year. So
I can't remember his name. You would know. The running back who was really good for a long time.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
No, not MJD. No, the other guy.
Leonard Fournette.
No, the Lenny's too new. No, he's God. I want to say he played with Brunel.
Fred Taylor. That's
Fred
this guy.
Taylor. Yeah.
That's
the jersey you're wearing.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's funny. I'm staring right at the jersey. Yeah. Fred Taylor was a beast, man.
Yeah, he was great back in his prime. He was just unstoppable. So, and I'm starting to see a lot of that magic coming back, but today's Jacksonville Jaguars I've never seen before as a fan, and we're borderline like Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
We just suck every season. We've only had like maybe 5 winning seasons in existence. And I think the Jaguars of today are better than the 1999 Jaguars that almost went to the Super Bowl in the 2017 Saxonville.
Yeah.
I think today we're far better than those two.
You think so? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool to see because they've been kind of knocking at the door for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they start out shitty and finish great, or they start out great, kind of finish shitty.
Yeah.
Or they implode, 28 points or something they gave up, and they had like a huge lead a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
In the playoffs. But they're looking good right now.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, we're a Buffalo Bills family.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's from Buffalo, and so we're just all right. Well, I don't really have team allegiance, but we're a Buffalo team now.
Yeah.
And I just haven't really paid attention to any other team outside of Buffalo. So now at the end of the season, I'm looking. I'm like, holy shit, Jacksonville's tearing it up.
Yeah. So right now, I see Jacksonville's probably the most complete, and trying to not be biased because people are, oh, you're biased, Jacksonville. I'm saying they're the most complete. I don't really see too many loose ends with them going into the playoffs. The picture, if I had to guess what's going on this weekend, I know New England's going to railroad the living shit out of the Chargers. The Chargers are just holding up a spot. Jacksonville and Buffalo, from a non-biased perspective, and you're going to hate me on this one, Jacksonville's good, but Buffalo's in a state of scarcity right now. And what I mean by that is they're coming into this game with a lot of baggage and pressure of you need to win or else. And I've noticed that really in the last couple weeks, just seeing how Josh Allen looks on the sidelines. He looks stressed, and so does McDermott. So I think coming in on Sunday, Jacksonville's going to be cruising. Buffalo's going to be scared shitless the entire time. Like, we need to win this game or else. Like, the pressure's in Buffalo right now to go out and to be successful. And if I had to pick one team to be terrified of in the playoffs, it's going to be Houston. And I say this because they have that psychological leverage over the Jaguars. What do I mean by the psychological leverage?
They also just beat the Bills.
Yeah. They have that thing like the Tennessee Titans when they beat us the 3 times when we should have went to the Super Bowl but didn't. And it's not because Tennessee was an incredibly great team. Not biased, by the way. My older brother's probably going to be, he's a Titans fan. So imagine growing up, butting heads. Anyways, it's the psychological leverage of this is what we did to you. And I think Houston, if we play them in the playoffs at some point in time, they're going to play that, that little psychological leverage. And that's going to give them an edge. Yeah. Other than that, Houston looks pretty dangerous. I think they're going to run over the Steelers, and this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' final game. That's just my opinion.
Those are your hot takes, huh?
Yeah.
As far as Buffalo, I agree that they have the most pressure because at this point, people are like, there's no Lamar. There's no Patrick Mahomes. There's no Joe Burrow. There's no excuse. It's like at the end of the day, you're still playing another great team.
Right.
It's not Josh Allen versus everybody else. It's just win and loss is a quarterback stat, right? But Jacksonville's scary, man.
Yeah.
They are. And in this household, we've talked about that too. I told my wife, I was like, I don't, and my son, he keeps up with a lot of this stuff too. And my brother-in-law, he's just like this. He's kind of like this blind Buffalo Bills lover. Like, I used to kind of fuck with him when it's like we got in the playoffs. Like, yeah, you backed into the playoffs. He'd get so mad. Yeah. Right. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago when Tom was still in the league. But he, I think they have the most pressure of any team right now in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because of all that stuff. And, Josh can push sometimes, but he has no receivers.
Yeah.
Their defense is always, their back, their front seven has been okay. Their defensive backfield has always sucked. And we have Bosa now.
Yeah.
He's really it.
Yeah.
So I'm worried. Any team that can pass or run, it's always scary.
Yeah. And Trevor Lawrence, he's been throwing deep downfield like I've never seen him before. So that's going to be a challenge for them right out of the back.
I like seeing him have success, man. I
Yeah.
hate when people talk shit about players, especially when they're young. Trevor Lawrence, he's the dude, coming out of Clemson.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see him starting to have some success.
And I agree with you there. And I'm not going to lie. I was one of those that was kind of like, I don't think this is it. I don't think he's the guy. I was wrong. When he started kind of fumbling at the, middle of the season, I was worried. I was like, they're probably going to get another quarterback. I am so thankful he got it together immediately.
But hold on, that's your right though, because you're a diehard Jaguars fan. I expect that. From college football, I was all over Arch Manning's ass.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even know if he's even that good.
Yeah.
Because at the time he was playing like shit. At the time, Trevor Lawrence, turnover problems, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but he's coming into his own.
Yeah, and he did very well. I mean, all of a sudden he's 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Yep. Most of the time it was like 3 picks and 1 touchdown. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
We haven't seen horrible play call. We haven't seen horrible plays made like that since Blaine Gabbert was our quarterback.
Yeah, good old Blaine Gabbert.
Talk about, wanting to put a bag over your head. That's where the bag wires came from, in my opinion, was those years. We were
funny.
awful, and this was a guy that couldn't throw downfield, and it was just a circus. But I am so glad that Trevor Lawrence managed to figure this out in the middle of the season after blowing a lead to Houston, psychological leverage. I'm glad that he was able to come back and rebound from that. And he did it well against the Jets, and then the media's like, oh, well, it's the Jets. Then we go to Mile High. I really enjoyed that game. And we showed Mile High, hey, a little small market team, get it done, as always. And we've always been a small market team. So I'm not worried about Denver in the playoffs. I think Sean Payton is a great coach. I just don't have that conviction that he's going to go and win another Super Bowl with another team. I think he's going to get to the AFC Championship, and that's as far as he's going to get. Could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong if Jacksonville does not go to go to the Super Bowl, but I just think he's holding a spot too.
Yeah, and I haven't watched Denver. I look at the stats. I don't want to sound like a LeBron sexual, just looking at stats and all. But, every week I kind of look to see who's been doing what. And I just haven't watched a lot of football outside of the Bills this year.
Yeah.
But by the time this episode comes out, this game would have already happened.
Yeah.
So I will say good luck to your Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I'm probably going to sound like a complete clown, but I'm going to own it. And thank you very much.
No, that's just when you say, well, good luck to the Buffalo Bills.
And good luck to the Buffalo Bills.
There you go.
I wish them the very best. If this is the end of our season, I'd be okay with that. I mean, yeah, it's going to suck for us, but hey, we're going to come back and rebound next year. I wish the Bills, I hope they go all the way. If Jacksonville doesn't get it done, I hope the Bills are the next.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah. Somebody's got to stop C.J. Stroud. That guy terrifies me. You remember the old 1980s Terminator where you hear the do, that beat?
Oh, yeah.
I hear that shit every time I see, C.J. Stroud or the coach, because their composure is so well. I'm like, are you an alien, a machine or something?
It's funny. My wife says, she goes, who is that? I go, that's the quarterback for the Houston Texans. She goes, oh, he looks funny. I go, what do you mean he looks funny? He looks like a little girl. It was like, I started laughing. So every time I look at him, he looks like a little girl. It's just his hair and like the shape of his face. I guess it's hilarious.
It's weird. I call it like the Sonic the Hedgehog cut. That's how it registers to me.
Yeah.
Especially when he was wearing blue and he's running around. I'm like, oh, God, there he goes.
There goes little Sonic. Yeah,
that's all I see with him. And then, you got the coach on the sidelines, maintains composure even when the world is freaking on fire around him. You don't see any emotion. He's just sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
So those guys do scare me out of everybody in the playoffs right now is Houston. I'm not going to lie. They have their composure. They have their shit together. They're the only ones that can really derail, in my opinion, Jacksonville. If they go to the division or the AFC championship, you're going to see a bloodbath probably between those two. It's going to be like 2 hockey players taking off their gear and just punching each other in the face until there's no face available. Mm-hmm. You're just going to see blood and guts just being splattered everywhere. That's what I predict is going to happen. Who would win? I honestly don't know. I just expect a bloodbath is all I can really say if those two meet in the playoffs. It's going to be ugly.
So then who are your Super Bowl picks? We're going to go ahead and say Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm. if Jacksonville goes, I suspect they're either going to play against the Rams or possibly the Niners.
You don't think Seattle's going to make it? I guess Seattle's got the number 1 seed. Like that's another team I had no idea until like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, oh shit, they're doing great.
I think Seattle's got a great chance of going, but I think if they meet the Rams in the NFC Championship, I think we're going to see their true colors. Sam Darnold has done an incredible job.
Yes.
I just think that McVay's coaching is going to put them into the Super Bowl. I just think that's the edge that they have. And then Stafford, this might be his final season. I mean, this guy is still unstoppable. He can make any receiver great, that you give him. It could be some guy at the bar, no name, guy that they just pick up. All of a sudden he looks like Terrell Owens. And that's because McVay is a great coach. I don't know what they're doing for their offensive. I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, but they're amazing. They just seem to always have it together, even when they're backed against the wall. And, Seattle looks great. You watch them, they look amazing. But I think if those two meet in the NFC Championship, I think McVay is what's going to put them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so you say Stafford basically has the Tom Brady effect because that was, Brady just take any normal dude and turn him into a freaking Pro Bowler.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be the advantage that they're going to have there. I also believe Brock Purdy could get it done. I never count out Brock Purdy. There's a lot of unfortunate criticism surrounding him, but I think he's a great quarterback. He's one of those guys that if you sleep on him, you're going to find out the hard way, hey, I shouldn't have slept on this guy.
Yeah, I had no idea that the Niners are doing good either.
Yeah. I thought they were done, and all of a sudden, they're in the playoffs?
I know. They've lost like 3 or 4 games or something like that. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I thought they were maybe 500 or something, but Jay Lopez, best of luck to you when you relocate. As always, we're going to keep in contact.
Absolutely, and hopefully I can bring some new experiences to you, what the car scene might look like out there, connecting with my Puerto Rican roots. I hope to share that at some point in time. That thing is the little blueprint I brought to you is a part of that.
Well, you're always welcome on the podcast. You know that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure to have you here. So we're going to get you to sign this, and then we'll get you out of here.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Jay Lopez. I really appreciate it when my guests have that level of candor. A lot of times, I think we sit from these positions. I'm always very careful, even what I say. And I may have gone a little scorched earth today, but I still try to toe that line in the middle because that's how I am. I kind of pride myself on trying to listen to different arguments and draw a lot of my own conclusions. There's times where I'm on social media and I have to check myself to make sure I'm not falling too far down that spiral of echo chamber, because we all know that your algorithm shows you what it thinks you want to see based on what you've clicked on or things, based on what you've looked on. I'm not breaking any news here by that. So I know there's people who don't like it when I go there, and there's people who love it when I go there. And for those of you, I would say that don't like it, you have to ask yourself what it is that you don't like. You come here to hear my opinions on things. You come here to hear a little bit of car talk. If you've been with this show for a long time, you know that not a lot of car talk goes on. Some car talk, but this is the mind of people who meet initially through cars in transportation. And it's real conversations with real people. And of course, the subject matter kind of drifts toward whatever the guest is specialized in or wants to talk about. I try to not put controversial topics on when I have certain guests, but Jay and I talked about it a little bit before, talked about sports, talked about his personal life, and I pay attention to him on social media, so I know what his triggers are, his conversation points are. It's always better when you can have a conversation with somebody, even if it feels like an echo chamber at times. But I meant what I said. You have diehard opinions on one way, diehard opinions on the other way, and neither of those diehard opinions are really very good at talking about anything other than what they firmly believe. Then hopefully at some point the majority of people will be in the middle and be willing to have a conversation. That's just how we have to do it. if this is your first time listening to the show, thank you. This is what this show is. It's not always as intense about these things as we've had happen today. And since we talked earlier in the week, this was Friday when he was in studio, more stuff has come out, and I still feel at the end of the day, it's a terrible thing that someone lost their life. I don't even blame this person as much. You know, what the officer could, or the agent could or couldn't have done. I do understand from that perspective. And I would say this, because, you know, the difference in barely doing something or doing something is nothing. Something was still done. You know, and maybe it shouldn't be this way, but if you get up on an officer, if the officer says, don't touch me, if you just barely touch, you get arrested right there on the spot, versus trying to assault and tackle or wrestle with, you know, the stuff that some of these idiots do. I saw a statement about the recently deceased, and I think we get so trapped in our mindset about this person was super innocent or this person is a domestic terrorist. And the reality is this person wasn't neither. This person was closer to innocent than a domestic terrorist. And what I mean by that is that, unfortunately, people get radicalized by the media, by local and state governments, by hate groups. It's come out that she was part of one of many anti-ICE groups that go around and they professionally train to agitate. Remember what I said about those whistles? And it's too bad. It's too bad that people can be weaponized this way. You know, I once said on a podcast last year, actually, that people that can get radicalized like that, they're just low-hanging fruit. And it's sad that people in the government, people in the media see that as an opportunity to put their meat hooks in and use them as their puppets, as their agents to get their little causes apart. And sometimes people pay the ultimate sacrifice, and it is terrible. And that's my stance. And it doesn't mean I'm not emotional about it. I just try to look at things that way. It's like, damn, this whole situation sucked. Any way you look at it, it sucked. Should she have been there? No. And we know now. There's video with them blocking the road and dancing in their car. More than happy to do it. Never should have been there. Didn't deserve to get unalived. I think that the ICE agent, out of reflex of getting hit by a car, because apparently he had got drugged by a car like 300 feet earlier this year. It's just terrible. The whole situation sucks, and I wish everyone could just take a step back and realize it. Also, I know you saw, well, you probably didn't see, but ICE released a list, or their Department of Homeland Security released a list of the people they've caught in Minnesota, the sanctuary state, essentially. And that list is crazy. But the sad thing is, at the end of the day, that list, and no matter how many angles we see, is going to change anyone's mind. And that's why you should be really asking yourself what's really going on. Want to thank Right Honda and Right Toyota, Spark Forge AI from Marcus Foundry, Auto Cannon, officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. Can't forget my Patreon business supporters, Automotive Specialty Tool of Owings Mills, Maryland, Koya Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, The Lucky Brakes, Sports Breakers out of Caledonia, Michigan, Big House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, and Traverse City, Michigan, Shaving Success Treasure Valley out of Boise, Idaho, and I think that's it. I said Automotive Specialty Tool, didn't I? I did, and they're on here twice, and I think I said that last time I read this, so I need to update this. So if you're in a position to help the podcast grow, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/hardworking-podcast. But the best thing you could do is tell people about this podcast. The best thing you can do is leave me a positive review on Apple. You can, of course, subscribe and leave positive comments on the YouTube channel and help this podcast get to where everyone thinks it already is. Questions, comments, or concerns, info@hardparking.com, or follow the Instagram hardparkingpod. And I will see you next week.
Shut up!